You recently acquired Third Door Media.
Third Door Media is the parent company that owns Search Engine Land, Martech.org, SMX, and Digital Marketing Depot. It was the longest deal I've ever done. Oh, I'm gonna get murdered for saying this. And there was a lot of emotions. So that was a tough deal to get done, but I'm very proud of it, and we've got big plans for it.
Linkhouse, more than link building platform.
Hello everyone, welcome back to I Hate SEO podcast by Linkhouse. We're still in Chiang Mai and I'm meeting today with Nick Eubanks from Semrush. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I guess building and selling things my whole life. First business was like a lemonade stand, except to be different. I sold mint iced tea instead that my mom would make. But at like 7 years old, I was selling about $100 a day,
Wow.
which for, not bad for the age, but that is like the beginning of the journey. So I feel like I've just been like an entrepreneur my whole life, but mainly just in the selling side. That's like the thing I think is really interesting to stress is like, I think I've just always been good at selling from a young age.
Awesome. In Philadelphia?
I'm actually from the same town that Taylor Swift is from. It's called Wyomissing, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
It's about an hour and a half northeast of Philadelphia.
Cool. So you've been working with Semrush for like a relatively short time, like about 2 years?
Year and a half.
Year and a half, okay. Were you a fan of Semrush before? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a customer of theirs. I was a user of SEO Quake back when that was what what it originally was, and been a customer of Semrush for a really long time. From 2010 to probably 2014, I was one of their bigger affiliates. So yeah, been very aware of them forever. It feels like.
Okay, awesome. And in February 2023. Traffic think tank that you co-founded, it was acquired by Semrush, right? So in practice, they did what you had done with other smaller companies before, right? So I have two questions about that. First, how do you feel in a reverse process? And second, how did you become a decision maker at Semrush so quickly?
I mean, I feel that I'm happy about the deal because I think the community market was getting very saturated, and it was going to take more resources to find ways to differentiate. We haven't really put enough effort and focus, I think, into the community, into traffic think tanks since the acquisition. But what I literally have to finish today is like my plans for next year for like. We've got big ideas that I hope work well for what we're going to do to try to like sort of reinvigorate the community, at least within Slack. And then me working at Semrush actually has nothing to do with the deal. People think that like, it was an acqui-hire or there was an earn-out. There's nothing like that.
Because sometimes that happens.
It's normal.
Right?
It's very normal.
It's typical. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing's wrong with it at all. But there was no golden handcuffs.
Okay.
But because of the deal, that's how I met the Semrush leadership team. And the CMO, Andrew Warden, was the one who, after we met, was like, "Hey, I want to build this program. I want to build an owned media program. It was essentially like, would you want to come do this?" And I've been buying and operating digital assets for about 8 years before then through my venture studio, Super Limited. And so it was like the chance to go do what I had been doing, but like on a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
And go like learn how to do bigger deals and to work at a public company, which is I thought would be a lot harder than it is. Like I was just convinced that I was like unemployable. I was like, lifelong entrepreneur, like I can't go work for anybody else, but it's actually like a really chill company, and I love my team. My team's brilliant.
So you found your true place.
I'm really impressed by the people I work with. Like, there's people who do SEO, and then there's people that are like true market leaders. And if you look at like what Kyle Byers from my team has built with the organic search program at Semrush, like if you look at Semrush's organic traffic from like 5 years ago, and then you look at it like the past 3-4 years, we do 65 million visits a month. Like it's like a proper program. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the valuation fundamentals. Can you tell me what key metrics truly drive asset valuations in today's market?
Well, there's two ways to look at it, right? So there's looking at assets that have revenue and assets that don't have revenue. So assets that have revenue are very straightforward. You always want to price based on, net income, EBITDA. So, depending on how much EBITDA, there'll be different multiple thresholds, and depending on the industry, that'll obviously have that'll drive different types of pricing. And then I think where things get really interesting, this was my talk yesterday, it was a bit about this. When you look at assets that don't have revenue yet, but they have an audience. So it might be subscribers on a YouTube channel or subscribers for an email list, and open rate, engagement rate, who the audience is and how big that audience is what's going to drive, the most value. And you're always trying to use market comps, right? At least for pricing. So like, I'm going to price things very differently if I'm on the buy side than I am if I'm on the sell side.
Sure. And how do different types of traffic, like organic, direct, social, impact asset valuation?
I mean, for us, that's exactly what I'm buying, right? Like I only want to buy, like if you're a SaaS company, I don't care if you have $15 in revenue, if you've got 100,000 visitors, every month, users, I should say. So like uniques between, let's say organic, direct, referral, social, that's enough value for me to be, seriously interested in buying you at that point. Like I don't care what your revenue is. I'm going to price based on your revenue, but what I want is the traffic.
How do you value assets with high traffic but low monetization?
Again, I'm going to try. If I'm buying, I'm going to buy it based on the revenue, right? It doesn't mean that the seller is going to necessarily accept it, but like I'm going to try to price it based on that because it'll be way lower. If I'm on the sell side, I'm going to be like, look. Your product, let's say you're at a link building agency, and I know that you sell services for an average engagement of $50,000 a year. Your lifetime value is roughly 3 years for client lifetime, so $150,000 LTV. Let's say you are a typical agency, so you're closing about 50% of the proposals as you're sending out, and I know that you're generating, depending on the traffic. So let's say like I've got a blog that's all about link building, and I know that, I'm generating on my, whatever the traffic is. Let's say it's 20,000 visits a month, just use a low number. Let's say I'm generating 5 leads a week. So I'm generating 20 leads a month, and I know that you will close 10 of those leads. So that's 120 clients a year at a $150,000 retail rate. I'm going to do that math, figure out what that value is, and then do a multiple of that. If it was me selling.
So what's your framework for evaluating potential digital asset acquisition?
I mean, it depends on who I'm buying for, right? If I'm buying it for Semrush, I care about the affinity of the audience, and that's going to be best represented by what keywords they rank for. So like, I said this on stage yesterday, like if you want to sell me something, like, or if you want to know what keywords I care most about, go to Semrush, plug in Semrush's blog, Backlinko, Traffic Think Tank, Exploding Topics, Search Engine Land. Go put a bunch of our assets in there and look at all the ones that have what are the keywords that they all rank for. Those are the most important keywords, obviously. So you pop on a page 1 for any of those keywords, I'm going to be interested.
You recently acquired Third Door Media. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. So Third Door Media is the parent company that owned Search Engine Land, Martech.org, SMX, and Digital Marketing Depot. Search Engine Land is probably the most notable asset in that portfolio, at least for from an SEO perspective. They're the oldest and arguably one of the largest publishers in the industry.
And were you behind that acquisition?
Yeah, that was my deal.
Oh wow! How can you tell us how do you feel about it?
I mean, I'm really excited. It was the longest deal I've ever done. I mean, I've done before I was ever in marketing, I was in real estate, and I've done $500 million building deals that took less time than that deal did. And it was nowhere near that size. It was a very complex deal because of the type of deal, the structure, and there was a lot of emotions. The guy that started it was still the CEO, and he's most of the team members there have been there for more than 10 years, and so it's hard to get people who've built a business their whole life. It's kind of their legacy to sell those things. So it was a tough deal to get done, but I'm very proud of it, and we've got big plans for it.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
How long did it take?
13 months.
13 months. Wow. How did you manage all these emotions and the attachment?
It was building trust, right? I had to build a relationship with the seller and spend the time to really understand what his concerns were and what was absolutely required for the deal and where there was wiggle room and what we could give to get what we wanted and what he'd be willing to flex. It's just the art of negotiating a lot of times is building trust more than anything.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more about the negotiations? How did you go about it?
The thing I can say is that the price that he originally wanted, had we gotten the deal done faster, it would have probably been a bad deal for us because media spending in 2024 is actually down quite a bit, which would be bad for a media business. It made it worse for him because his pricing went down. But as the buyer, it's great for us. I mean, it's like, getting things on sale.
And how did you transition the team, or was there a team transition?
So the team is 30 people. They are all now full-time employees of Semrush. We've kept the structure intact. So we don't want to do anything to mess with the business. The media sales is going to continue. The editorial team is going to continue. Everybody stayed on. And the plan is not to make any changes to what's there. My team's strategy is more about building and growing traffic for specific sets of keywords that we're going to optimize existing content and build new content. But we're going to leverage the domain, right? It's a 15-year-old domain with thousands of really strong referring domains. If there's going to be a website out there that can rank for big, important, top of funnel, high volume head terms, it's that website.
And are the owners currently working for you as well?
No, so the founder is out. So he retired. He's an advisor. But the former president is now the CEO, Mark Sirkin, and we work very closely with Mark. Talk to him almost every day. And the leadership team from TDM is still all there, just except for the founder.
Together with all the employees.
Yes.
Any special plans for?
I think we're going to try to reboot SMX. So SMX was the big in-person brand for SEO conferences, and then it went virtual in COVID and never came back. And I think we're going to try to bring it back to life. Awesome.
In which location?
Don't know yet. There's lots of different opinions among my team. So the people in Europe want it in Europe. Those of us in the US want it in the US. So we'll see.
Okay, so your team is very global.
Oh yeah, the Semrush team is, everywhere. Our headquarters in Boston. Our second biggest office is probably Barcelona, but we've got offices in Philadelphia, Austin, Amsterdam, Krakow.
I live there.
Not Krakow, Warsaw. Warsaw, Prague. All over. So.
So what you did with search engine land, is that typical?
It will be. We're going to run the same playbook that we ran with Backlinko that we're currently running with Traffic Think Tank, and it's the strategy is the same.
Okay, so you always try to keep the team. That's
absolutely. Yeah, so we do the exploding topics. We bought Exploding Topics in August from Brian Dean. Brian, the founder, he wants to go and do other things, but the whole team that was running it, the CTO, everybody else is all still there.
Have you ever had a deal where you actually had to put the team from scratch?
No, but there has been a few deals where we've bought just the asset. So I bought a website last year and I bought 2 newsletters this year where we bought just the asset, not the founder, not we bought just the thing and just took just that and then built the team that's running it currently.
Okay. And so what are the red flags you're looking for when judging digital assets?
Well, we're buying audiences, right? So the typical thing, if you were going to buy a website and you wanted it for its traffic, you're going to pay attention to algorithm updates. You're going to look at the link profile. You're going to make sure that the authority score of the domain is not being propped up by a bunch of 301, a bunch of other domains that are being 301. And if it is, those domains better come within the deal. Typical due diligence, from an SEO perspective.
Okay. And what tools or processes do you use to verify the asset's performance?
we use Semrush, obviously.
Okay.
So Semrush data, and then we've got a pretty significant due diligence process in terms of like accounting analysis and legal analysis and big contracts. I mean, all the things you'd expect with a publicly traded company.
Mm-hmm. And any tips on monetization strategies that create most value long term?
Well, I mean, the multiple perspective is really interesting, right? So like if I was going to build a website and I wanted to make the most money, I want to make the most money on an exit in the shortest amount of time, I would probably build an ad-driven site. Problem is you need a really good traffic and page view strategy, right? And you want to ideally, you want to be in a market that has a really high CPM. So like not health and beauty, probably something in the B2B space. Crypto can be good, depending on which verticals you're in, but that'd be, because they trade way higher, right? So like affiliate is definitely dying a slow death, not so slow death, but affiliate's like on the way out. And affiliate sites will trade for 35 to 45 times monthly revenue. Or commission revenue, whereas you've got like an ad driven site, you might get like a 50, 55 times monthly. So better multiples because it's more hands off. But there's traffic risk, and so the less traffic risk there is, like if I'm buying an asset and it's got great organic traffic and it ranks for important keywords and it's got like some meaningful amount of direct traffic, let's call it 20%, like that will help increase the value of the asset, right? Because like it's a hedge against the organic traffic risk.
So what common mistakes can damage assets' long-term value?
Well, sale value I'd say is a difference. So like I can tell you a fun story. So like I came across a website recently. It was like a QA testing sandbox. So it's a website where like you sign up and like the users are there to like run different tests on different types of code. And you can test like production functions and like different like types of JavaScript. And the website has 600,000 users a month, right? Like that go, and it's like almost all direct traffic. So like awesome, like it's essentially a brand. And I'll ask you, so I found this site for sale on a brokerage on a marketplace website. How much would you guess, without knowing any of the actual revenue numbers, how much would you guess a site like that was making? Or better yet, how much do you think it was selling for? 600,000 like developers, like really specific audience, high value audience. Developers spend money on tools. They have access to budgets for their companies, and there's 600,000 of them every month coming to this website.
Couple 100,000.
It's a good guess. Totally a good guess. It was listed for $22,000.
Okay.
And it was listed for that because it was monetized with ads, and the ad network was a terrible ad network that had almost no inventory for that audience. So the CPMs were like 40 cents or something, right? So like it's the business model that's broken. Like the monetization strategy is what's screwing that owner, right? So like I look at that site and I'm like, oh, I'm going to generate leads for QA testing agencies because that's a real thing. And those leads are probably each worth 50 grand, right? In terms of, average test. And so it's like, you can probably generate leads and sell native advertising packages and lead packages for $100,000 a month, and then suddenly that site is now worth $3.5 million instead of 22 grand. So like there is, I think, the most common mistakes with monetization, I think, is people picking the wrong monetization strategy. And one thing I think that there's a really big opportunity is for folks to do more monetization consulting. So like I remember when I built my second company, Factor Media, we were based in Japan. The site was in Japanese. It took us about 16 months to get to 3 million visits a month, organic. A lot of new users every month, and I was having a really hard time trying to figure out how to monetize it. Ads were not going to be the right monetization strategy, and like I went and looked for like a couple months as the CEO to try to find like somebody who could come in and be like, hey, here's our audience, here's our strategy, here's our size. How is the best way to monetize this site? Couldn't find one. We ended up selling that company for like mid 8 figures without the site being monetized, because the company that bought it, they wanted the user base.
So how do you balance like short-term revenue with long-term asset value?
I mean, I guess I would be curious like how sustainable it would be. Like a lead gen website, obviously, depending on traffic sources, like if you're doing a really good job of generating leads, and depending on what the spread is for those leads, what your buyer profile looks like, even if you got hit with an algorithm update, you could probably still buy traffic to generate those leads or run sponsorships or, other forms of direct response advertising to generate those leads. So there's less risk there, as opposed to like an ad-driven site, right? That's all organic traffic and like no direct. It's like one core update or another HCU happens or something, and you could be dead in the water.
What do you do post-acquisition? What's the first thing?
We start with the highest traffic. We start, implementing our revenue acquisition playbook, I'll call it, on the highest traffic pages. And then what we try to do as soon as possible is find all the pages that have an opportunity for us to increase rankings. Because at the core of everything that I'm doing, at least at the own media strategy for Semrush, is it's all organic traffic. We're not buying any traffic for any of these websites.
And what channels are effective
for traffic?
Yeah,
I mean, Google obviously.
It depends on.
But that's the thing is, so like I am buying different asset classes, right? So like I'm buying websites, I'm buying apps. Like it could be a browser extension, a Shopify app, a SaaS. I'm buying newsletters. I'm looking at podcasts. I'm interested in YouTube channels. Like I want to test them all.
That's a very diversified field.
Yeah, that's the best part, though, right? Is like we're not like a one-trick pony in terms of what we're buying. So like, there's the truest form of like, we're buying audiences. So wherever that audience lives, we'll find a way to convert it.
But how big is your team? How do you manage that if you have such diversified assets?
My team is 75 people.
Oh, big.
Yeah.
Big. So do you divide them into like specific channels?
Structure. This is actually great. It's a great question. Okay.
Yeah.
Underneath me, there's really 4 departments.
Okay.
So there's acquisitions, and then there is organic search non-brand that runs all of the SEO strategy for Semrush, Semrush properties, and Semrush brand.
Okay.
And then there is program management and growth, which is the teams that we run. It's three departments. It's growth marketing, acquisitions, and OSN and organic search. And so acquisitions just source the deals, do the valuations, do the deals, negotiate the deals, buy them. Okay. And then once they're bought, they get handed off to the growth marketing team to grow and sustain them.
Okay. So the acquisition team doesn't care which channel it is, whether YouTube or whatever, they just deal with the deal. And post-acquisition, the other team.
Growth marketing team handles it, yeah. And then we've got, the organic search team is a world-class search team. I think that I feel I'm biased, but I think look at our organic traffic. I feel very good saying that. They set the strategy for the growth marketing teams, and then the growth marketing teams. The way the growth marketing department is set up is there's different programs. Okay. And there's different assets in different programs. So like there's one program that's like Backlinko, Traffic Think Tank, Small Biz Tools. That's one program. TDM is in its own program. Okay. Exploding Topics is in its own program. And then we've got a program just for email. And then if I'm able to buy like a podcast or a YouTube channel, they'll get their own program, because the strategy for growth and traffic acquisition, like to Semrush properties, is going to be different based on the channel. So I need to find people that know, like the program manager for email is like an email expert, whereas like the program manager for the program that Exploding Topics is in, like her background is more on like SaaS marketing.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
It's like, it's like understanding that like the channel, the asset classes, I'll call it, are different, and so like you need different skill sets to manage them.
So you overseeing this very diversified team, like do you educate yourself on all these different channels as well? Like,
I think the interesting thing for me is like, the first 2 companies I sold were SaaS, and then my third business was e-com, and then I've sold 2 agencies. And so like I've worked in a bunch of these different models. I've run in-house teams and agency teams, and I wouldn't say that I'm a developer, but I'm pretty technical. Okay. Just after building software companies, I think you have to be able to talk to developers. Otherwise, you're kind of a shitty CEO.
Yes, so you've been exposed to quite a few different assets.
Yeah, definitely. I think like having having like a more diverse background. Especially, I think also just like being in the game a while. Like I've been been out of college for almost 20 years now. So like, it's just time and experience.
Yeah. So what do you do when there is a new channel that you're not very experienced with? Like, what's your approach?
That's a really good question too. So we'll try to structure a test. So like right now I'm working on a test where like I want to advertise. I want to be like the exclusive advertiser on a podcast that I'm looking at. And I want to do that for like 3 months, 6 months. Like, hey, I'm not ready to buy you yet because I don't know what the valuation assumptions should be in the financial model.
Okay.
And so let me negotiate a deal with you where we'll take over 100% of your sponsorship inventory. And because of that, we'll work out a custom deal where we'll get to test some of our ideas on how we think we could drive the most traffic to Semrush. And if that works, and then we're like, all right, we know this is the click-through rate. We know this is the conversion rate on that traffic. Like once we know some of those assumptions, then we can actually be like, all right, that based on that, we can afford to pay this much for that asset.
I see. That's a good approach.
It's the testing. It would be definitely. I don't think it looks that way on the outside, which is why I think that's such a good question. I think people are just like, oh, like, how do you figure it? Because like there's the price that sellers want.
Yes.
And then there's what we know we can pay based on our model. And so, we're like, this is how much we believe this will make. This is how much profit it's making now. This is how much profit we believe or revenue we can drive from it. And so to us, it's worth this much.
Yeah. And you need data to decide that.
Ideally.
So that's a good strategy.
Yes, you get it. Yeah. So run the test. Yeah. Exactly.
How long that test lasts?
It's different by the channel.
Okay.
For email, we might do a month. Like if we're testing a newsletter that we're unsure about, like let's say like there's a newsletter about AI. And we're like, we don't know how well we can sell our tools into an AI audience. So let's go run a sponsorship test of an AI newsletter for a month and see how it does. Podcast, I think, is going to need to be longer. Okay. YouTube channel, similar deal. Like we're not sure what these performance, like these conversion rates are yet. So like, let's go sponsor a couple of YouTube channels, a couple of different audiences and see how they do. That audience affinity piece though is also really important. Like we've got different, like we think about like how important an audience is based on like how close that audience is to existing audiences that we know we can sell into. And if they're further away, like let's say the audience is like, let's say we're looking at a blog and the blog is like how to create a successful TikTok business using TikTok. We're like, we have no idea how well we can sell into TikTok creators. And so like that would be like a lower value audience to us because we have no idea. Those people are still marketers. They need to market people, but like, will they buy one of our tools? We don't know yet.
Yeah. Do you have anything on TikTok or?
Nothing yet. We have a TikTok channel, but it's run by our brand team.
Yeah.
TikTok is not something, I've never been on TikTok. I don't have it on my phone. It just has never been of interest to me. That probably sounds really dumb. As somebody who was a marketer, or I guess identifies as a marketer, but it's not on my radar yet. I'm not saying it won't be, but it's not yet.
Sure. Yeah, it's very different from other social media.
I've met some people who are running TikTok shops and they're doing tremendously well. So I think there's definitely like huge opportunity there. It's just what's the saying, like the devil I know. Like there's just so much opportunity from channels that I do understand and do have experience with that like I just haven't gotten there yet.
Especially with the younger audience, like aging. Yeah, they're more and more on TikTok, right? Yeah,
it's going to become more and more important. Yep.
Yeah. So actually, are there any assets that are currently undervalued, you think?
I mean, like that developer blog I told you about, right? Like those, like I'll find a couple of those every month. My team will find those where we're like, this is a great audience that is monetized with the wrong business model.
And any assets that should be avoided that are kind of like on the down trajectory.
So, I'm going to get murdered for saying this. So like, I am not currently buying like courses or communities.
Okay.
And I think that might surprise some people. Because like I have two agencies that I currently coach that work specifically with course creators, and their clients, the course creators, they average between $500 and $1 million a month in like profit from their courses. So like they're really nice businesses if you build the funnels the right way, but it's not the right fit for us at this time, like for Semrush at least. And then communities, I think like there's a lot of people that see, like there is tremendous value in community, but I think it's so much harder to drive revenue from a community than people realize. Like unless there's a really specific tie-in, like unless the community is designed with like a monetization strategy in place, like buying a community and then trying to figure out how you're going to layer in monetization from like a SaaS is not as easy as I think people think. Yeah.
So what about AI? Is it changing, affecting the asset valuation at all?
One experience I did have in terms of like a deal around AI was I was looking at an AI newsletter and really fast growing newsletter, great revenue, really smart founder. Everything was great. And when I presented the deal to the board's feedback was like really insightful. And they were like, you know, we don't want to buy an AI like focused asset just yet, because we're not sure if AI is going to stick around as like a separate topic where people are going to be like, oh, AI, as opposed to like, there's a very real potential that AI just becomes completely integrated in everything and it's ubiquitous. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, of course that thing uses AI or this uses it. And it's no longer like AI this and AI that. It's just like, oh, like this like of this app or of this industry are supported with AI because everything is supported with AI. And so there was like a very big question around like what's the sustainability factor of something that is like focused on AI as a topic, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's not something I would have thought of, but like when I got these questions, it's like, oh man, that's a good doubt to have, and I don't know the answer, so like let's not go spend a few $1 million to find out.
Yeah, sure. So what about like protecting yourself, like insurance or legal protections for digital assets?
I mean, we've got incredible insurance, right? Like we've got an amazing legal team. So yeah, it's not something I've had to worry about so much. Like I obviously, in my previous companies, I always had business insurance. Like you should always have like errors and omission, key man risk. Like absolutely have business insurance if you're delivering services or anything for that matter. But that hasn't been something that we've had to worry about specifically. We work very closely with the legal department to make sure we are covered. Like all the right disclosures and all that fun stuff.
So do you ever sell?
No.
Or you just buy and continue optimizing?
Correct.
In your previous business
I've sold everything.
Yes.
No, I've sold 2 companies and 3 sites in the past 2 years. Like, I mean, I'm always selling, but.
So how do you, on your own, not asking you about since you're not selling in Semrush, based on your experience, how do you decide when to sell versus when to continue to optimize? So
there's a couple different sort of scenarios. So one is, so like whenever my thesis for my venture studio was always like, if I have an idea, I'm going to launch it. And if I can get it to $1 million in revenue in 12 months, then I'll hire somebody to run it, or I'll put the processes in place to put it on the shelf, let it keep kicking off money and go on to the next thing. Just because I'm a 0 to 1 person, I lose interest very quickly.
Okay.
And I don't like growing things as much as I like starting them. I like starting them, finding traction, getting it to $1 million or a couple $1 million, then doing something else. So like the second criteria for me is I'm getting bored. Like, that was, I think, the problem with the agency was like, running an agency is hard. I'm not an operator. I'm not even a very good leader. And I was just never going to be able to take it as far as somebody who was sort of built to do that job. So like hiring a CEO for From the Future was the best thing I ever did. Like building a board, hiring a CEO, stepping out of the day-to-day, and then realizing, that still owning as much of the company as I did was holding the company back. And so the best thing I could do at that point was sort of set it free, sell the remaining, my remaining ownership, which I did this year, and, let it take off and continue to grow and do what it's doing now, which is, tremendous. And then the third thing would be everybody's got a price, right? Yeah. Like there's always, like I think one thing that a lot of less experienced entrepreneurs don't think of is like, just because you're building something, as an entrepreneur, unless you're building something to like change the world, which is totally the case, right? Like Elon Musk is not going to sell SpaceX at any price because he's trying to populate Mars, right? Like there's a mission behind it that has nothing to do with money. But most of us are building businesses to make money. And if you're building a business to make money, what I think is crazy is if people, entrepreneurs who don't think of what that price would be at any point in time, because it's like, oh no, I want to still grow this for a few more years. It's like, all right, well, like why? Well, it's like, well, I want to get to this number. So if you got offered that number today, would you sell it? And people, like I've heard this more times than I would imagine, like than I would have ever guessed. Which is like, it's like, oh, I want to sell for 10 million. It's like, well, I want to build this for like a couple more years, and I think I can get 10 million for it. So what if you got offered 10 million today? No, I wouldn't sell.
Really?
Well, why not? It's like, well, if somebody would pay 10 million today for it, that means it's worth way more.
Exactly.
Or it could be worth way more. And I'm like, but you just like it's
and you have 10 minutes
exactly.
right away. You're not waiting.
That's exactly. Like I think as an entrepreneur, it's important to always have that number. Like just have an awareness. Like at what number would I sell? And then if that number comes along, take it.
Yes, exactly. So what's like the advice you would give to people wanting to sell assets to you?
To me?
Yeah. So have the number.
Have your number. Hopefully, it's based on reality. It should be based. It should be based on a multiple of your earnings. Or if you've got traffic, like the other thing is comps. Like I was saying, right? So if you look up how much Backlinko sold for, because it's public information, and you look up the traffic that it got, go to Semrush and look at what was the organic traffic that Backlinko got when it sold,
at that point,
and you're like, all right, that. For that affinity, that group of keywords, if I have a website that ranks for the same or similar keywords, and I've got this much traffic, this is how much Semrush paid for Backlinko per visit. It's like you can really quickly reverse engineer what a price would be.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's all that we prepared for today. Thank you so much for coming. And if you enjoyed this as much as I did, please follow Nick on his LinkedIn profile, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our newsletter. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thanks so much for having me.